Hi, I'm Paul Feiner. I'm the Greenburgh Town Supervisor.
I'm Pauline Mosley, your co-host. Welcome.
Today we have a very interesting program. Actually, it's a program that could save lives of children. Everybody, they love their children and they want to make sure their child is safe.
Yes, Paul.
So we're going to be talking about child seat safety with an expert, Stephanie Tombrello. And Stephanie comes from a very well-known family. Her sister, Vanessa Merton, who recently passed away, was, in my opinion, a true hero. She was passionate about helping people, was a professor at Pace, focusing on immigration. She was an activist working on making sure that the quality of life in Hastings was as great as possible, and she was honest, person of tremendous integrity. Stephanie's brother won the Nobel Prize, and her father, world famous sociologist. And today we're interviewing another member of the family, Stephanie Tombrello, who is also in your own right doing fantastic things. Maybe you could tell us just a little bit about yourself and about the Merton family, what's in it, why everybody does so much good in your family.
Well, I think you've left out my mother, who was a volunteer after she had been a social worker prior to my birth, and doing things in the community, getting involved in issues about which we care. That's always been something that we thought was important. So I think that what happens is you start out on a trail, as I did as a clinical social worker. I worked in a number of places, including Cambridge, England. And when my daughter was born and I moved back to Pasadena, California, I wanted to know how to protect her. And a friend of mine sent me Woman's Day, and it had a fabulous article by the first female automotive columnist about the fact that there were only 2 safety seats sold in the United States that passed crash tests. And I tried to buy one and it was hard. And so I ended up going to the founding meeting of a bunch of volunteers, and we worked on markets and all the services they give and reported that. And then we dealt with prescription drug pricing. And then they let me start a group on child injury prevention. And from that, eventually, I ended up going to a meeting and the state people said, oh, she knows more about this than most people in the community. Maybe she can help us start a conference. And so I said, oh, great. And we talked about it. And I suggested that we have the people attending get together by region. Now, Los Angeles County is bigger at that time, bigger in population than 45 of the 50 states. So we had one region, and our 15 members at that conference decided we needed to start an organization to address this very serious problem. And from that, I ended up as executive director of what in 1990, because we were serving the whole country, became SafetyBeltSafe U.S.A. And I remained as the executive director until 2021. And I'm a senior program consultant. What I want to do now is to work on some gaps in child passenger safety.
I had a question. I have a grandniece, and she's 17 months old, and my sister installed car seat, when she visits, and I'm sort of wondering, for say when I speak to my sister and my niece, what should she be concerned about?
From our experience, between 80 and 90% of parents are making errors. And that's not because they're uncaring. It's because there are a number of steps that need to be taken. And we've developed a very simple brochure that's at carseat.org right now that you can print that talks about the steps you need to take. not just the kind of overall, but the steps you need to check yourself when you're putting in the seat. So for 17 months, the child should be facing the rear of the vehicle. The seat can be fairly upright by that time because the child's got plenty of protection. By the way, don't worry about feet when the child is rear facing. We don't find foot area injuries at when the seat is rear facing. They start when the seat is forward facing. You want to make sure that the harness on the child, the straps are coming from below the shoulder or right at the shoulder. And you do a little test. We call it the pinch test. A friend of mine developed it. You take your thumb and forefinger and you try to pinch the fabric right by the shoulder. You shouldn't be able to pinch any fabric. Not that it should be so tight that the child is, has dents in the skin, but it should not be able to be pinched. The retainer clip should always be at armpit level. That keeps the straps in the right place in case there's need. Now, attaching the safety seat to the vehicle is very important. And the seat has two ways to be attached, either with a safety belt or with the lower connectors that go to lower bars in the seat bight. And most cars have two in the back seat. A few have three. But the safety belt is always correct. And we got many years ago, we got the standard that every safety belt has to be manually lockable, so it will hold a safety seat in, and it has no weight limit. The lower connectors are fine, but they have a weight limit, and you need to look on the safety seat instructions to see how heavy a child can use those lower straps. So I've done a lot of talking, but I would say, please look at that little checklist at carseat.org. It's right on the homepage. You could download it, and it will give you some general guidance. Use the instructions, use the manual of the vehicle, because both of them will tell you important information, key information to getting it right. The key point is that when a crash occurs, everything in the car moves toward the point of impact. The most serious, often crashes are frontal. So you're going toward the front of the vehicle. And at 30 miles an hour, you can multiply the weight of whatever is in the vehicle by 30, and you will see how much force that piece is going. So you have a loose flashlight. Weigh it, multiply by 30, and you get an idea of how much force is exerted. Now, with a child, they're top heavy. They have big heads in relation to their bodies. Also, you want to take the force over the whole back, if you can. Personally, or not personally, but through the research, all of us should ride facing the rear in a vehicle, because all of us have stronger backs and necks. And what happens is when you're in this crash, you go forward with a huge force on the neck. With a top heavy head, the child's going to have incredible force on the spine, and you can have very serious consequences. So rear facing is safest. By law, in many states, you must keep the child rear facing till at least 2. And that's key information for everyone to know. So I'm really glad you asked that question.
Yeah, I had a question, Stephanie. This is so informative. What is the appropriate age where a child can ride in the front seat? Because I've heard, many different ages. Some say 10, some say 11, some say 13, some say, what would you recommend?
Well, I would say look in your owner's manual of your vehicle, and it will tell you age 13. And frankly, there's even some research that says until a child is getting ready to drive, around 15, they start watching what the driver's doing as they prepare to become new drivers. And so the front seat is involved in a lot of crashes. Now, I will add one thing. The automotive industry has been improving the front seat safety. There's a lot of safety equipment in the front seat. Consumers Union and many of us are pushing for improvements in the back seat. But for children, the back seat is better for sure. And this is one of the reasons that it's so important to get across the stages of child passenger safety. Rear facing till at least age 2. And by the way, today's safety seats are designed, some go as high as 55 pounds. And as long as there's an inch of plastic behind the head, you can keep the child rear facing up to that weight that it says on that seat. Okay. When you turn the seat around, you're going to make changes. You're going to raise the straps to the higher position, so it's above the child's shoulders. You're going to attach a strap at the top of the seat called a tether strap. That is one of the things that many parents don't do. You're going to check the weight to see if you can still use the lower connectors if you started with them. You're going to change where the safety belt goes through the seat. So there are a lot of steps that need to be taken. And then the part of the reason that we push for booster seats and booster seats until the child fits in the belt properly is that a booster seat raises the child to be in the position for what safety equipment is in the back seat, like the side airbags and so forth. Then they're more at the height of a seated adult, and they're at the place for that safety. So that's why there are so many of these comments that get made.
One of the questions I have is if has the technology for child car seats changed? For example, say somebody has a cousin who is 17 years old, and their parents give their niece or whatever an old car seat. Is that a mistake, or should you every few years should you basically throw out the old car seats and get a new one?
That's a very good question. Used safety seats need to be looked at very carefully. First of all, you have to have the instruction book. You will have to see how long that seat will last. The longest one is usually 10 years, but many of them are 7 years or something like that. Every seat must have its date of manufacture on a label, and this is a federal standard. If you can't find that label on the seat, you don't know what you've got. So used seats can work if they're relatively new. They have the instructions. They've never been in a crash, and you have all the parts and pieces. And of course, you can talk to the company that made the seat and get some of that information if it's missing. But you shouldn't just say, oh, yes. Now, you hope that people will recycle a seat and not just throw it in the trash. That sometimes you have to remove the straps and so forth, cut them off. And also, if you do put it in the trash, please cut the straps. Please make it look as uninviting as possible so no one comes and takes it out of your trash can.
Are there any videos that people could take a look at? We could actually put some videos on this interview showing what you could do correctly
and what not to do.
Definitely, there are videos. Don't Risk Your Child's Life is now in its 9th edition, and we can help people get access to that video. There are often in states the traffic safety office may have videos that are available. So there are many options for seeing how to do it. And then all the safety seat companies have made videos of how to use their seats. So if you have a particular seat, you can go to their website and check to see if they have a video for the seat that you're looking at. And I would encourage anyone who's expecting or has visiting relatives coming to really check into correct use, because incorrect use is massive. You know, there are, and again, I want to say there are a number of steps that one needs to take. And if you miss a step or misunderstand a step, you may make a mistake and inadvertently your child is riding at risk. If you put the belt through the wrong pathway, if you don't attach the tether strap, etc. Now, throughout the country, there are child passenger safety technicians and technician instructors. I'm a technician instructor and have been for many years. You can seek them out. I don't like to generalize because every state does it a little differently, but there are people either at hospitals, clinics, social service agencies, fire stations, police departments, state police. I could go on for the backgrounds, and there's a way to find a technician in your community through the Safe Kids website, because they have the responsibility, the contract for handling the certification program for the country. And so you can look that up as well.
Yeah, the Greenburgh police, probably for over 30 years. We have a child safety seat installation initiative, and we've been doing it for years. And, you know, what tips would you have for the officers? Because, you know, I remember when my daughter was small, they installed the seats, but are police departments that are installing doing enough in terms of educating after they install? Because I basically said, oh, they installed it, and then I remember I just left. I never asked them, you know, for demonstrations. I mean, should there be, as part of this, you know, program?
I think that's really part of what the technician is planning to do, is to talk to the parent and have the parent help install the seat or install it himself or herself with guidance.
And maybe even the child should be.
And if you can bring the child, it certainly means that you're going to get the straps at the right level, right? And you'll also, I'm sure they asked you how old the child was, because if your seat was a convertible seat, it goes different ways. And today's seats, a lot of people are buying things that are called all-in-ones. Now, there's nothing unsafe about an all-in-one, but I would say to any expectant parent, plan that you will be using a safety seat for at least 10 years. So think to yourself, would your child want to be in the same seat that child used from birth, say till, 6, at up to 10? Maybe you want to get a convertible seat and later get a booster seat that's appropriate. There's even one company that makes forward-facing seats with harnesses, which we call combination seats, and they make boosters that have the characters that people love, from Batman and Cinderella and all these characters. Just to give a little extra thought to looking around before you make a decision that, oh yes, I'll buy one seat and I'll never have to buy another one.
Do you, is there like a rating for, say from Consumer Reports for child safety seats? Are there some child safety seats that, are inexpensive that you would not recommend even considering buying?
I can tell you that I have to praise the federal government because they finally figured out how to get rid of these things. But we had a spate of these things that were called safety seats and sold on reputable websites. They were imports and they definitely would not have saved a child. And we were very worried about it. And it was a bit complex, but the federal government and the Federal Trade Commission worked really hard. And I haven't seen so much of them, but we have a flyer about it. So yes, there are things that are called safety seats or called car seats that are not. Every seat that passes the federal regulations must have the date of manufacture and the model and so forth on that label that I'm talking about. And there are very specific requirements for instructions, testing, and everything. So it's not that that it's just open. And then we got a rating system at the federal level. And so you can go to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration site, and you can, in fact, get ratings done by them on ease of use, because that's an important concern. And Consumers Union has a wonderful program on looking into the safety and usability of seats. And they are very much, as I mentioned, working on improving rear seat safety in general in terms of automotive design. So there's a lot that's going on and a lot that's right. Now the message has to get to everyone in the public. And I'm very sensitive to the fact that we have a very diverse country and many languages and so forth. And I think our field has tried to address that, but we can always be better. And so if your community is not getting this information, and I know Greenburgh is, but if there is any community that feels they're not getting the information, this is very important to know. And SafetyBeltSafe U.S.A. has 2-800 lines and a website, and I'm more than happy to have people send me an email, and we can talk about that as well. But what we have found is that the research does show that state laws are one of the best educational tools, because when someone sees that the law says something, they're sort of sensitized to it because there's a consequence, and it's sort of makes it more important. And so to me, what we need to do right now is improve state laws so that they come up to the kinds of recommendations and the kinds of research that we're finding. I'm not an expert on New York law. I did look at it, but I'm not an expert. But I can tell you what I think your law should include. First of all, most states have an age at which it implies that the child can get out of a safety seat and use a belt alone. And those laws usually are at an age, or they have a height. Now, the height has been shown through research not to be a stable predictor. We actually did a little sub-test ourselves and found that 27% of the children who were 4'9" could not pass the 5-step test, which we developed 25 years ago, that will tell you exactly whether the child fits in the belt in the car in which that child is going to ride. Okay, because every car is different, and two people of the same height have different proportions. So just using basic algebra, you have to have both factors. The 5-step test takes that into account. Now, our data showed that until age 10, not even half the children that we tested, and we tested between, I think it's over 10,000 children now, until age 10, not even half of those 10-year-olds passed the test. in Europe, they use age 12 as the guiding force. I would like to see the 5-step test very much a part of state law because it's simple. It's anybody can apply it. The child, most importantly, can learn it. This gives self-agency to children, and that is very important because as they are farther away from being under the oversight of their parents for more and more of the day, they have to learn to take care of themselves. And this is a very easy first step.
We're running out of time.
Yeah.
I think we only have about 2 more minutes. Anything else you want to mention? I did write about a month ago to the governor, the Child Care Council of Westchester, the governor's Traffic Safety Committee, our state legislators, the Automobile Club of New York, their safety advisory board, the county Westchester Traffic Safety Office, and I shared with them information that you have, and I'm going to write to them again, and I'll share this this video and ask them
Excellent
to take
work.
this really seriously. You know, it's like a little challenge now because you're in California, we're in Greenburgh, and we want to beat California and do more in terms of safety. I'll also speak to our traffic safety officers, the
Wonderful.
people who install the seats, and ask them to review this. And
in the
hopefully-
hospitals, in the
yeah, and
hospitals too.
we should send it to the maternity
Yes.
divisions at the local hospitals and see if they could make a major effort to promote child safety seat inspections. So I like the idea of the hospitals. I haven't thought of that.
I would like also to point out that the majority of children killed in impaired driving crashes are riding with the impaired driver. And we need to get every professional who works with families to be aware of that, to intervene. And I would suggest that you have a very strong Leandra's law in New York. It would be interesting to see if it's being applied, because as I may have mentioned, the research shows that despite having these strong child endangerment laws, there's no effect on the death rate. And it's for 25 years, Kieran Quinlan, MD, has been doing research on this and getting this information out. And still, the majority of professionals do not know that. Fortunately, the National Child Passenger Safety Board allowed me to give a webinar for child passenger safety technicians. So if you know any technicians who have not taken advantage of that free webinar, I want to encourage them to, so that they can educate their peers who are in the important roles with children. Visitation, for example, if a family is separated, very, very important that that be part of the visitation rules. So I have these 3 gaps, and I encourage anyone who wants more information to get in touch. And it's how to wear a belt during pregnancy, working on the laws to get the 5-step test in there, and maybe you can print the 5-step test up on the screen so people can see it, because we haven't gone into that. And finally, let's realize that the children riding with impaired drivers are at tremendous risk. 69% of the drivers will live when the child dies, which shows that these are not unsurvivable crashes.
Well, thank you. And thanks for joining us. I look forward to working with you. Thank you.